By the late autumn of 1941, the British Empire was a weary titan, its strength stretched thin across a globe already engulfed in flames. In the humid docks of Singapore, the sun still seemed to set on a landscape of colonial permanence, yet a chilling wind was blowing from the north. The arrival of Force Z was intended to be a masterstroke of psychological warfare, a show of naval prestige that would cow the Japanese Empire into submission without a single shot being fired. At the heart of this fleet were two of the most famous names in the Royal Navy: the battlecruiser HMS Repulse and the brand new battleship HMS Prince of Wales. The Prince of Wales was more than just a ship. It was a floating symbol of the British state. Only months earlier, it had carried Winston Churchill across the Atlantic to meet with Franklin Roosevelt, its decks serving as the birthplace of the Atlantic Charter. It was an unsinkable fortress of steel, equipped with the latest radar and a formidable array of anti-aircraft guns. Yet, as it steamed into the tropical heat of the Far East, it was entering a world where the old rules of naval engagement were being rewritten in the skies. The strategic failure began long before the first torpedo was dropped. The British Admiralty, steeped in centuries of tradition, still viewed the battleship as the ultimate arbiter of sea power. They believed that a modern capital ship, handled with aggression, could withstand anything the Japanese could throw at it. This hubris ignored the burgeoning reality of land-based air power, a lesson the British should have learned from their own successes at Taranto and the sinking of the Bismarck. Admiral Tom Phillips, the commander of Force Z, was a man of the old school. Known as Tom Thumb due to his short stature, he was a brilliant administrator, but a skeptic when it came to the lethal potential of the airplane. He believed that the fire from a battleship's secondary batteries would create a wall of lead, so dense that no pilot could penetrate it. He sailed from Singapore on December 8, 1941, with a fatalistic confidence, heading north to intercept a Japanese invasion force reported near the coast of Malaya. The logistical failures were equally staggering. Force Z sailed without its intended aircraft carrier, the HMS Indomitable, which had run aground during training in the Caribbean. This left Phillips relying on land-based air cover from the Royal Air Force. However, the RAF in Malaya was equipped with aging Brewster Buffaloes, aircraft that were hopelessly outmatched by the Japanese Zero. Communications between the Navy and the Air Force were fragmented, plagued by a lack of shared radio frequencies and a mutual misunderstanding of the tactical situation. As Force Z pushed into the South China Sea, they were shadowed by a ghost. A Japanese submarine, the I-65, spotted the British ships through the haze and transmitted their coordinates. The Japanese 22nd Air Flotilla, based in occupied French Indochina, had been training for months for this exact scenario. Their pilots were not the amateurs the British expected, but seasoned veterans of the war in China, masters of long-range maritime strike operations. The weather, which Phillips had hoped would hide his movements, began to clear. The heavy tropical rain squalls vanished, leaving the two British giants silhouetted against a bright, unforgiving sea. On the morning of December 10th, the first Japanese scout planes appeared on the horizon like vultures circling a dying beast. Phillips, still maintaining radio silence to avoid detection, did not call for air support until it was far too late. The first wave of Japanese bombers arrived at 11 a.m. They ignored the escorting destroyers and focused their fury on the Repulse. The battlecruiser, though older and less protected than the Prince of Wales, was commanded by Captain William Tennant, a master of ship handling. As the bombs fell, Tennant pivoted his massive ship with the grace of a destroyer, dodging hit after hit. The crew cheered as the plumes of water erupted harmlessly in their wake. But the relief was short-lived. The second wave brought the real killers, the torpedo bombers. Flying low over the water, the Japanese pilots braved a storm of anti-aircraft fire to release their weapons at point-blank range. One torpedo struck the Prince of Wales on its port side, near the stern. It was a freakish, catastrophic hit. The explosion bent the outer propeller shaft, which continued to spin at high speed, tearing apart the internal bulkheads and flooding the ship's electrical nerve center. In an instant, the pride of the Royal Navy was crippled. The loss of electrical power meant the great guns could no longer be trained. The pumps could not keep up with the rising water, and the internal communications went dark. The Prince of Wales, a masterpiece of engineering, was reduced to a drifting, defenseless hulk. The systemic failure of its design, which lacked adequate protection for the propeller shafts, had been exposed by a single well-placed strike. While the Prince of Wales foundered, the Repulse fought on with a desperate, lonely courage. Captain Tennant continued to maneuver his ship through a labyrinth of torpedo wakes, successfully dodging 19 consecutive attacks. But the Japanese were relentless. They attacked from multiple angles simultaneously, a tactic known as anvil-and-hammer. Eventually, the law of averages caught up with the Repulse. 5 torpedoes slammed into its hull in rapid succession. The scene on the Repulse was one of organized chaos and quiet heroism. Men in the engine rooms stayed at their posts, knowing they would never see the surface again, just to keep the ship moving for a few more precious minutes. When Tennant finally gave the order to abandon ship, he did so with a heavy heart, watching as his crew slid down the tilting deck into the oil-slicked waters. The Repulse went down quickly, disappearing beneath the waves with a roar of escaping steam and the haunting sound of its own structure collapsing. The Prince of Wales lingered longer, a dying Titan refusing to go quietly. The Japanese pilots, seeing the ship was doomed, did not even bother to launch their remaining torpedoes. They watched from above as the great battleship slowly capsized. Admiral Phillips and Captain Leach chose to stay with their ship, a final act of traditional naval gallantry that felt like a relic from a previous century. As the hull turned over, the survivors in the water sang to keep their spirits up. their voices drowned out by the final, violent gasps of the sinking ship. The loss of Force Z was a seismic shock that reverberated across the British Empire and the world. When Churchill received the news by telephone, he recalled that in all of his long years of war, he had never received a more direct shock. The myth of British naval supremacy in the East had been shattered in less than 3 hours. Without the protection of the fleet, the fortress of Singapore was nothing more than a hollow shell, its guns pointing the wrong way toward a sea that was now controlled by the enemy. The tactical disaster of December 10th was the definitive end of the battleship era. It proved beyond any doubt that even the most modern, heavily armored ship could not survive against determined air attack without its own aerial umbrella. The tragedy was not just in the loss of 2 ships and over 800 men, but in the failure of a military establishment to recognize that the world had changed. The sword of the battleship had been broken by the shield of the airplane. History often remembers the great commanders, but the true story of Force Z lies in the shadows of the lower decks. It is found in the gunners who fired until their barrels glowed red, the signalmen who stayed on the bridge as the water rose, and the destroyer crews who braved the threat of further attacks to pull survivors from the burning oil. These men were the victims of a systemic failure of imagination. Yet they met their end with a dignity that their superior strategy did not deserve. The sinking of the Prince of Wales and the Repulse was a brutal philosophical lesson in the cruelty of progress. It served as a grim reminder that tradition is no substitute for adaptation, and that the prestige of the past is a fragile defense against the technology of the future. The 2 ships today lie on the floor of the South China Sea, silent monuments to a vanished empire and a style of warfare that died with them. As we look back through the mist of decades, the tragedy of Force Z stands as a haunting prelude to the fall of Singapore and the dark years of the Pacific War. It was the moment the Psalm finally dipped below the horizon for the British Navy as a global hegemon. The steel giants are gone, reclaimed by the deep, leaving behind only the echoes of their thunder and the enduring lesson that in the theater of war, the only constant is the relentless, unforgiving march of change. The sea remains vast and indifferent, a graveyard for the hubris of men who believed they could master the waves without first mastering the skies.
The sun never set, a weary titan tangled in a global net. sea is steaming with the prestigious name to cow the Eastern Empire in a ghost-led game. The Prince of Wales, a floating fortress of pride, where the Atlantic Charter was signed on the tide. But the centuries of tradition are blind to the skies, walking into a world where the old doctrine dies. No indomitable shield, no carrier in sight, just the buffalo wings that are useless in flight. Tom Thumb maintains a silence, a fatalistic delay, while the shadow of I-65 is pointing away. Oh, looking for sea, the pride of the crown. In the South China Sea, the giants go down. No wall lead can stop the vulture's dive. In the storm of torpedoes, no titan survives. The sword of the battleship broken and torn beneath the bright waves, where the new world is born. 11 a.m., the first wave is in sight. Captain Tennant is dancing through the curtains of light. 19 attacks that the Repulse can evade, but the second wave brings the final parade. A freakish strike on the port of the Prince. The propeller shaft is twisting, making engineering wince. The electrical nerve center plunges to black. Adrift and defenseless, hawk with no turning back. The supremacy is shattered in a 3-hour hell. The steel giants sleep where the coral will grow. They mastered the way